Hello and welcome to Foundational Fringe, Myth, Legend, Supernatural, and the Paranormal in the Biblical Text. I am Dr. S.W. Kibler and will be your guide as we search out the truth of the Scriptures. Remember, you need to search the Scriptures yourself to show yourself approved unto God. Now, this is the first official video produced under Dr. S.W. Kibler Ministries. I am now on my own and will be working to develop this ministry, both online and DVD, and personal presentations. So the contact information for Dr. S.W. Kibler Ministries will be on the slides preceding and following this video presentation. And soon I hope to have up a website and some other information. But please, your support by prayer, donation is appreciated. So, what the hell? That's the topic for the next several sessions. We look at this topic. It's been an interest to me for some time, and I have done some study on it. But when I was in the pastorate, it was more conducive to speak about hell in context with heaven and simply refer to the other place, opposite heaven, as the bad place by the term hell. Well, the word doesn't actually always refer to hell or what we might think of hell. It's an English word translators use to refer to several words in the biblical text. So hell, that word, has become more of a catch-all term that refers to that place opposite of heaven. Now, hell is really an Old English word, and it referred to the netherworld or the abode of the dead. Infernal regions, that place for the torment of wicked after death. So that's kind of where we get the word hell. Like I said, it's an Old English. Actually comes from Old German and Old French. But that's really what it refers to. More of the abode of the dead, netherworld, and so forth. So in reality, the Bible is full of antithesis. There's good and evil, sinful acts, acts of righteousness, Yahweh, the devil. And sometimes just relying on the simple antithesis diminishes our understanding of what the biblical text actually says. Like, hell is the opposite of heaven. Well, that's what's happened. We've been so used to just considering hell as something bad, a bad place, we really don't fully grasp hell. And if that's a place you don't want to be, find out why you don't want to be there, and then what's really referred to in the biblical text and what words are used to describe it. So I had a young man ask me the other day a really good question, and that was, if God created everything, and when he created it, everything was good, how about hell? Was hell created and deemed perfect by God? That's a pretty good question. Well, yes. That was my answer. Yes. But what do you mean by hell? Because there are several places that might be considered hell in the biblical text, and they are not all the same. Anyway, everything that Yahweh created was perfect. Before sin entered into the world, sin caused the perfect to not be perfect. So Yahweh, God didn't respond to sin on earth and then construct some place for the rebellious to go. We always need to realize that Yahweh, the Lord, is in control and his foreknowledge is perfect. And we need to allow our minds to understand that Yahweh's foreknowledge was used to create what and how he created. I want us to look at a couple of verses. The first is in Isaiah. I'm just going to expand this a little bit there so you might be able to see better. It's in Isaiah 46:10. It says, declaring, this is speaking of the Lord declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient time, things not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will accomplish my purpose. You see, God's in control. He knew what he was doing from the beginning. The end was determined from the beginning and everything in between, right? And then in Matthew 25:41, we read, again in the English Standard Version, then he, the Lord, will say to those on his left. This is when he separates the sheep from the goats at the end times. The sheep are good, goats are not. Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. So we see the Lord Yahweh's, his foreknowledge, right, is declared in this text. He declared the end from the beginning, and from ancient time, the things not yet done, he knew about. It's his foreknowledge. Rebellion, mankind's sin. The lake of fire was created in the beginning by Yahweh for the devil and his cohorts before there was ever a rebellion. So, yes, the lake of fire, if you want to call that hell, was created in perfection for God's purpose, his plan, right? Based on his foreknowledge. So it was good too. We might think it's bad, but in God's plan and purpose, it's good. It's good. Now, the lake of fire will not be populated until a certain time. So there's no one in the lake of fire right now. So if you consider that hell, there's nobody there. Okay? Because we read here in Revelation, and I'm going to be reading again, English Standard Version, Revelation 19 and 20. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth with their armies gathered to make war against him who was sitting on the horse and against his army. That's Christ. And the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet, who in its presence had done the signs by which he deceived those who had received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped this image. These two were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. Bam. Okay, so that's the first time we read about anybody occupying the lake of fire, and it's at the end of time, right? It's at the end of time, and the beast and the false prophet are thrown in alive, right? Okay, so then the next is we're going to look at in Revelation chapter 20, verse 10. And it reads, then the devil, again, English Standard Version, the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. So now we have the devil himself in the lake of fire that was prepared for him and his angels, and the false prophet and the beast. Right? Now it's occupied, but at the end of time. And then again we read in Revelation, and this is chapter 20, 11 through 15. It's a little lengthy, so bear with me. English Standard Version. Then I saw a great white throne, and him who seated on it. From his presence, earth and sky fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged by what is written in the books, according to what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in it. And they were judged, each one of them according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Bam! So there we go. So if this is your idea of hell, the lake of fire, it's the final judgment. And it's not occupied by anybody or anything now, and it won't be until the beginning of the millennial kingdom, when it will be occupied by the beast and the false prophet. Satan will be bound in a pit for 1,000 years and then released, and then Satan, the devil, will be thrown into the lake of fire. Then there'll be the white throne of judgment, and if anyone's name is not found written in the Lamb's book of life, they will be thrown into the lake of fire. But that's down the road, right? That's not now. It's not in the past. It's all future, right? So, if that's the idea of hell, there's no one there yet. It was created in perfection with a purpose. Yahweh's purpose, according to his plan, based on his foreknowledge, because Yahweh is in control. Right? So, what is the condition of the dead and other entities in their location before the lake of fire at the end times? Right? So what's it now? In the past. What's the location of the dead and other entities before the lake of fire? Is it hell? Is that what it's called? There are several terms used in the biblical text that are used. Oh man, look at, I just turned the wrong one. There. There's Gehenna, Sheol, Hades, the abyss, the pit, the underworld, among others. So we're going to look at many of these, if not all of these terms that are used in the Hebrew text and the Greek text and what they refer to. Okay? And what possible current occupants and future occupants are revealed for these places in the scriptures. First, we're going to look at Gehenna. Gehenna. Okay? So we're going to go to the New Testament here in Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. And we read again from the English Standard Version. This is Jesus speaking. He says, "And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell." Okay, so here in this verse, as well as many other places in the New Testament, specifically the Gospels, this word hell, right, in English, is from the Greek term Gehenna. Gehenna. So here, Gehenna. So Gehenna is of Hebrew origin. And you see the references here on the screen. That Strong's corresponds to Strong's exhaustive concordance of biblical words. And it really refers to the valley of the son of Hinnom. Gehenna, or Gehinnom. A valley outside of Jerusalem. Okay? So that's really what it means. The word Gehenna means the valley of Gehenna, or the valley of the son of Gehenna. And it was just outside Jerusalem. But it is and has been used figuratively as a name for the place of everlasting punishment. Okay? So now we know. When we hear this word Gehenna, it's referenced in the scriptures, but it's called hell. But so are other places. But this is very specific. This is Gehenna, and now we have something we need to look up. So if Gehenna is referring to a valley that actually existed, then it's still there. The valley hasn't disappeared. It's just been, populated probably. But, over time. So there's Gehenna. Now let's take a little bit deeper look at this and see what we can learn. So most commonly when we hear the word hell, and I've heard preachers and teachers, they talk about Gehenna, and they refer to it as a garbage dump or a trash heap outside Jerusalem where there was a continual flame, a fire kept burning, and they would take the carcasses of dead animals and criminals and trash and garbage and throw it in there to be burned. Okay? Now, that is a very powerful visual effect when it's talking of the abode of the dead who are not believers, right? Hell. This continual burning trash heap. However, when you look at its roots, there's a lot more to it that can be found in the biblical text that will paint a more profound picture of Gehenna. So let's read a couple of texts out of the Hebrew text that might help gain a better understanding. We're going to read out of 2 Chronicles 28, verses 1 through 3. I will do all my reading from the English Standard Version in this video. It's about Ahaz, king of Judah. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as his father David had done. But he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. He even made metal images for the Baals, and he made offerings in the valley of the son of Hinnom. Oh, there we go. He made offerings of the valley of the son of Hinnom. He made images of Baal and made offerings in the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is Gehenna, and burned his sons as an offering, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. So let's read another scripture verse here. This is out of the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 7, verses 31 through 32. And they have built the high places of Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom. Okay, there we go. Same place. Valley of the son of Hinnom, Gehenna. To burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I did not command, nor did it come into my mind. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when it will be no more be called Topheth, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. for they will bury in Topheth, because there is no room elsewhere. Okay, so now let's read one more verse, section of Scripture. This is out of Jeremiah 19, 2 through 6. And go out to the valley of the son of Hinnom, at the entry of the potsherd gate, and proclaim there the words that I tell you. You shall say, hear the word of the Lord, O kings of Judah, inhabitants of Jerusalem. Thus says the Lord of hosts, God of Israel, behold, I am bringing such disaster upon this place, that the ears of everyone who hears of it will tingle. Because the people have forsaken me, and have profaned this place by making offerings in it to other gods, to whom they neither they nor their fathers, here I need to switch this, their fathers nor the kings of Judah have known, and because they have filled this place with the blood of innocents, and have built the high places of Baal, to burn their sons in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal, which I did not command or decree, nor did it come into my mind. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when this place shall no more be called Topheth, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. So, there we go. So, Gehenna, burning garbage dump? Or is there something deeper there, right? Just a burning garbage dump, or is there something much more profound? So, in Gehenna, originally, we said it was the Valley of Hinnom. It's a deep, narrow glen to south of Jerusalem. That's where the idolatrous Jews offered their children to sacrifice. That's what we just read. To Molech, who's also known as Baal. This valley did afterwards become a common receptacle for the refuse of the city. Yeah, the dead bodies, animals, criminals, all kinds of stuff were just cast in there. The firewood's always burning because it's always smoldering. And in time, this became the image of the place of referred to, right, by the Greeks especially. But what did Christ have in mind when he used the term? See, he didn't speak Greek. It's not what he was speaking Aramaic or Hebrew, right? And all the references in Matthew and Mark and Luke, and then in the New Testament letter, James, the epistle, the word Gehenna. To some it might mean a trash deep dump, always on fire. But historically, to the Jew, what did it really refer to in their mind? The Old Testament, those passages and more that we had just read. There are particular terms that are used in conjunction with this place, this valley of Hinnom, in the verses that we just read. You remember that it says this was the valley of the sons of Hinnom. It was a place where Baal was worshipped by the rebellious Israelites. We read that in 2 Chronicles. He even made metal images for the Baal. That was Ahaz. And he made offerings in the valley of the son of Hinnom. Jeremiah read about the valley son of Hinnom because the people have forsaken me. They make offerings to other gods. They've built the high places of Baal. So we know that this is a place of a particular location where Baal was worshipped by the nation Israel and ordained by King Ahab and Ahaz, and we'll get to that in just a minute, and other leaders. And it was totally rebellious toward the Lord. There's also another term that we read, and that's a Topheth. We read that in Jeremiah 7 and Jeremiah 19. So this word from World History Organization specifically, and there are other resources for this, but the Topheth was a sacred peace area outside cities in Jerusalem where offerings were made, rituals were done, and it was child sacrifice. It was done throughout the Mediterranean, but we're speaking right now just of outside Jerusalem. And we read about the Jeremiah standing at the gate of potsherds. It's because they used to use pottery as funerary urns to store the ashes of the children that they sacrificed. Some of those broke. So there we go. The human sacrifice was done there, especially children. And like I said, they were killed by fire. And they were actually laid in the arms of a large statue with a bull-type body, and that was Baal. Baal, God of Bashan, Baal, who had outstretched arms, and that's where they would place the victim before falling into the fire. They also are said to have put on smiling masks on the victims, right, when they were being offered. Sick. Then the victims' ashes were put in urns and buried in tombs, and that was a walled area, and that's what it was specifically made for. That's Gehenna. Gehenna was originally referred to historically for the worship of Baal, the sacrifice of children to Baal or Molech. That's originally what it referred to. It was at this location that King Ahaz sacrificed his own son, king of Judah, to Baal. And he was the nephew of King Ahaziah in Israel. Okay, at this point, the nation had split into two. There was northern kingdom Israel, southern kingdom Judah. Okay, Ahaz was king of Judah, related to the king in Israel in the northern kingdom. And Ahaz was the son of Jehoram, who was the evil son of Jehoshaphat. And while Judah's king, Ahaz was related to King Ahaziah of Israel through his mother, Athaliah. Athaliah was the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. Now, if you remember Ahab and Jezebel, they really brought Baal and Asherah worship into the kingdom. And because of this, it really ticked off the Lord. According to the biblical text, Athaliah, her name means afflicted by God. She actually was queen of Judah for several years. The only female monarch to sit on David's throne in biblical history. Athaliah was a daughter, like I said, of King Ahab and Jezebel. She married Jehoram, and then she became queen and nestled amid centuries of evil monarchs who reigned over Israel, and they were avid Baal worshippers. And even Athaliah rivaled the wickedness of the kings who came before and after her. And you can read about that in 2 Kings 11 and 2 Chronicles 22. So this valley of Hinnom, or Gehenna, is steeped with the worship of Baal and the burning sacrifices of children to Baal. As we have determined from previous studies, Baal is also the one known as Satan. In Matthew 22, I'll let you read that yourself, Jesus associates Baal, Beelzebul, and Satan as being the same person. And that's Matthew 12, 22 through 27. So it seems that King Josiah, who was a good king, came in. He ridded the kingdom of Judah of Baal worship and destroyed the Topheth and the other items of Baal worship. And you can find that in 2 Kings 23:10. And it became a condemned place. And it's possible then the area began to become a garbage dump. But a deeper biblical understanding of Gehenna seems to be that it is the place dedicated to Baal, Satan worship, a place of continual fire and stench, once used for the worship of Baal and the sacrifice of humans and specifically children for the worship of Baal. Right? So it's also a reference to that final state of Satan, of Baal, of Satan, and those who follow him and worship him. It's a reference to the lake of fire because it was created for him. So the reference is to the place where Baal was worshipped by fire. The Lord has prepared a place of fire for him. Doesn't that make sense? where Baal was worshipped by the Jews with fire and sacrifice, burning children. The Lord has prepared a place for Baal, for Satan, that's continual fire that will burn them up. So that eternal fire prepared for Satan, for the devil and his angels. Also, as we read, for those who follow Satan. Those who willingly or unwillingly are worshiping Satan, they will follow him into Gehenna, into the lake of fire. They will be able to worship him in the lake of fire. So this is the final abode for those whose names are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And we'll continue to search out the rest of this story. Is where did the dead go before the end times? Before the lake of fire? What happens to the dead? Is there a difference of where people go now compared to the Old Testament before the lake of fire? What is that? Where is that? And who might be the occupants there? What we do know is this, is Gehenna is a place you don't want to see for yourself. And so you need to make sure that you know Jesus Christ as Savior and Lord. Because he has prepared for you a place if you belong to him. It's not in Gehenna. It's in the other place. It's in the good place. It's called heaven, right? So we're going to continue to look at this, but we've looked at Gehenna. It's the lake of fire, a place where Baal, Satan, was worshipped with fire and burning up of humans, right? So the Lord has prepared a place. Just, isn't it? It's God's justice. This is how he was worshipped. So the Lord has prepared a place just like that for him and his angels and those who follow him. So I hope you've enjoyed Foundational Fringe, Myth, Legend, Supernatural, and the Paranormal in the Biblical Text. And thank you for joining me. I am Dr. S.W. Kibler, reminding you to know the truth, stand on the truth, and speak the truth. God bless you.